It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello everybody.
Happy New Year, guys.
Woo!
Woohoo, 2018.
I don't know if y'all seen this. I know Les hasn't. But I saw it on Twitter quite a bit, and I think I've seen it a couple of times on Facebook where someone posts says, Happy 2000, and then underneath that is a picture of the A-Team.
Oh, no, I haven't seen that.
That's cute.
That's bad.
It took me a little bit. I was like, okay, 2000, and, oh, okay, all right, never mind.
That's bad.
Yeah.
That's what I would have said to it. Never mind.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
That's not that was cute.
Hope everybody had good holidays out there. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I got something for Christmas. I
You were a
know.
good boy this year.
And it wasn't just coal like every
Was it
other
coal?
year. Ouch. Anyway, that would be so bad if it wasn't true. No. This was something cool, not coal. I got the Blu-ray for the most recent season of Red Dwarf, which aired back in October and November in the UK.
Woohoo!
Series 12 came out. It came out right before Christmas, and so I got it on my wish list as fast as I could. It got bought in a couple of days, and I got it, and I've watched most of the episodes now. And this is tricky.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to keep this short because holy cow, I could go off on Red Dwarf and just have a blast. But
Pull out the soapbox.
I would like to say, well, just the fanboy soapbox anyway. I like it. It's maybe not as well written a series as I was hoping for. I liked 11 pretty well. 11 I thought was better done than anything that had been done in a while. This one is not quite as good as 11. There are some funny moments, but there are also, I think, way too many callbacks. It's funny to do a callback every so often. It's kind of not funny to do it in every episode, especially when you're only doing 6 episodes. It's just, yes, you want to play to the fandom, but you don't want to pander to the fandom. There's a kind of a difference there. That said, there's some funny stuff, and it's very much true to Red Dwarf. It's not like they wandered off in the weeds or anything. So as a fan, I like it. Also as a fan, it's definitely not my favorite, but it's definitely good.
Cool.
I'm jealous. That's cool.
It is pretty cool.
It's available on Amazon, man. Hop on there and grab you one.
Emma what?
Yeah, exactly. Emma who?
You can shop online now?
Shit, I'm not even sure where you would buy a Blu-ray or DVD other than online anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess Walmart has the bargain bins. I don't know what else they sell, to be honest. I couldn't tell you if Walmart had these things or not. I don't know. There aren't specialty movie shops anymore, or very few of them.
Yeah, very few.
And it's available where again?
Am aware?
Let's plug them one more time.
Abby Normal?
Yeah, just you wait. We'll get there.
Alrighty.
Well, I just got back from vacation. My husband took the week off, so we toured, let's see, Austin, Waco, almost to San Antonio. And I have to say the craziest thing I saw this whole week was chickens in a tree. Did you know they could climb trees? There was like 10 of them in a tree. But
They
in the
can actually
meantime,
fly for short bursts. They can fly enough
yeah,
to get into a low tree.
like, no, these were like over my, I mean, I'm not very tall, but these were like over my head kind of trees, you know? But to tell you how crazy this place was, it was an animal farm petting zoo.
Like Orwell's
That's
Animal
okay.
Farm?
I'm sorry, snake farm petting zoo.
Okay, I was going to say, to be a George Orwell theme would be a little weird, but snake farm petting zoo.
But it was kind of one of those things you just saw driving down the road. We didn't even plan to go in there, but they had these goats which were probably wider than they were taller because they'd been fed so much by people. All in all, it was pretty cool though. But I did get some reading done in driving, and I had picked up the trade, the Wonder Woman, the True Amazon, and the artwork is just beautiful in this. It's by Jill Thompson.
Jill Thompson, yes.
Yes. And I guess I have never heard this story of Wonder Woman before. I guess they have a couple of different origins for the older characters and everything else, but I really enjoyed it. And like I said, just the artwork alone was just beautiful. So, but then I reread White Knight. I grabbed those on the way out, and when you run out of stuff to read, you know. But I'd have to say the best thing I've read this week was the Wonder Woman. Different story, but I liked it. Because I don't remember her being spoiled and ungrateful. And my version that I heard was, didn't she fight, you know, under disguise, and she won, and that made her the champion. So
Yes.
this was a little different than that story, but I really liked it. I really did.
They went with the spoiled princess concept instead of the Amazon princess concept.
Well, kind of, but I don't want to give too much away, but she has a turning point in this book, which kind of puts her on the path of the Wonder Woman we know, where she would get those values and what drives her. And so it was kind of different than wanting to get out there into the man world, you know, to do good. But it was more of a, I guess she was kind of forced out there in this story. So it was good. I don't know if she plans on doing another one after this, but I'd be very, very interested in reading. Just like I said, for the artwork alone was beautiful.
Nice.
She is the creator of Fairy Godmother?
No, Scary Godmother.
Thank you, Scary Godmother.
Okay.
Which is a great set of books for kids, and they've made a couple of them into animated programs.
Yeah.
I would definitely say this story was an all ages story too, because it kind of teaches you to be grateful, you know. So I could see this being all ages.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you found her, because she is a talent for sure.
It is. And in the back, the last, I guess there's 10 pages here. It gives you a sketchbook where it shows like her concept drawings from pencil to ink and the different ideals she had. So it was a pretty good little book. I'm glad I picked this one up.
That's great.
Very cool. Yeah, I like Jill's work too.
When it says this one's an Eisner Award Best Graphic Album. New. So, so she did. It was a good story.
Alrighty, Les?
I just read a few things. That's about the kind of week I had. But I did read Dr. Radar, which is a very, very unusual book, but it is pretty well done. I was impressed. It is a story by a French writer and artist, so it was translated. And like books that I care for, it is a novel of spies and intrigue type situation. Unfortunately, it was only 2 issues. They did leave it open-ended, so I was happy about that. And let's see what else I read. I read Barbarella #1. Looking forward to issue #2. It's a pretty strong story in as far as strength goes. It's not pornographic. It has just got a dose of nudity, and it's not like it's gratuitous, we'll say that. But the story, I think, is pretty cool. And I believe that this could go on for quite some time. I can see them making the story last a while and then pick up on a second arc pretty quick.
Cool.
Awesome. For me, I actually have a big bag of nothing this week. I kind of took a little bit of a break from reading and just trying to, rest and regroup and that kind of thing. Any special things y'all did for New Year's?
Nope.
I watched a baby so a young couple could go out and enjoy themselves. I'm past that point.
Okay.
And it was kind of cool because I walked in the door right at midnight. So.
Okay.
It was freaking cold, so I wasn't going anywhere. I sat
Yeah,
on the couch, curled up under a blanket.
I was scared of the roads, but it seemed like everything we got had kind of dried up.
Yeah.
So it was just really, really cold.
Yeah, it was all early in the morning, so.
True.
So when I went out for lunch, everything falling was sticking to my windshield. And that's, I was kind of like, uh-oh. But it didn't seem to do more than drizzle here, so it didn't get too bad.
Yeah.
Cars dried it up before it froze up.
Well, as I was telling Les earlier today, I was doing the Thin Man Marathon on Turner Classic Movies, which was a blast. But it got us on some interesting discussions because Les had mentioned, he would love to see that brought back, but still kept in the late 30s, early 40s time frame, and we were trying to figure out who you'd cast in those roles. And I told him that I had Twitter up, which was probably not a good thing because everybody was basically blasting the hosts for the New Year's Eve countdowns that were on the main networks. But someone had mentioned would really love to see a Thin Man comic, and they posted an image from Jerry Orway, who did a commission back in, 2013? Was that what we saw the date?
Yes, sir.
Of William Powell, Merloy, and Asta, and it was beautiful. I was like, oh, that would be a no-brainer to do the book if they would have it based off the movies. But such a great film series. It kind of goes downhill after the third film, but it's still kind of a fun.
But what series doesn't, really?
That's true. That's a good point. But, the original writers were gone, and they weren't based off the Hammett books after that. So, but I highly recommend if you not check it out. I just love the interaction between Nick and Laura. It's just so great.
It's almost natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original writers were gone, and the creator decided to do a series of prequels, and it's just just didn't work as well. Lots of CGI, just didn't work as well.
That's right.
Yep.
He got fatter, but then he got thinner. And you've got to remember, the Thin Man was not Nick Turtles.
Yeah.
The Thin Man was the victim in the first movie.
Spoiler.
Damn, no kidding. I was so going to watch that, too.
You ruined it.
Ah.
Might as well tell me you
No.
saw dead people.
Pretty sure.
As they say in old Rome, Titus Meus.
That's a Latin version.
Guessing height. Yeah.
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 I'm pretty sure I've seen the first one of those.
Yeah.
Pretty
But not
sure.
everybody has, so.
Yeah. But it's also an 80-year-old movie series, so
Yeah.
True.
So,
I think people have had their chance, really.
oops on them. Yeah. I'm excited to watch that Happy that's about to come out on Sci-Fi.
That
Grant
is funny.
Morrison's Happy.
That is pretty funny.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think I missed the first one, but they're backing it up this week before the second one, so.
Yeah. It's well worth the time.
Cool.
What's
I have
this
it all
about?
set up. It's-
What's this one about?
He's an assassin, and
or he was a cop turned bounty hunter.
that's right.
Pissed everybody off, and I guess something happened to him, and his brain kind of boinked. Because now he sees like this little blue unicorn, and it talks to him, and so my kind of show.
And of course it's Chris Meloni playing the former cop, which
That's
is
why it sounds familiar. I saw something about that. Okay.
Yep.
yeah,
I knew it sounded. I was like, Happy. That sounds familiar. Okay, Chris Meloni. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that does.
which
sound
was
fun.
perfect casting.
It was. And Grant Morrison, of course, has gone all out on Twitter to promote this, so should be pretty good.
Cool.
Because Chris Meloni's never played a cop with anger issues before, so.
No, never.
What a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, the
So
deal is,
unbelievable.
the flip side of that is, and I wish I could remember what I saw him in, but I saw him in something, and he was playing. It was comedy, and he did really well. So he can do
Oh,
comedy.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen him do other stuff too, but it's
Yeah.
just that's kind of what you think of is Law and Order
Oh, sure.
when you see him.
He
So-
did
He did that for years.
comedy. He did a comedy for National Lampoon where he was the producer and they were trying to make a movie. And all it was this was a movie of skits. And they would do a skit and they would come back and they'd say, yeah, that's pretty funny. We'll keep that one or we'll lose that one type situation. His office was the elevator. So as he's riding up and down, he's got various people getting on the elevator and they're looking at him like he's an idiot, which in that role he was. But it was very funny.
See, I remember him from Oz, the prison show.
That was
So
not
when
a
I saw-
comedy.
No,
Liz.
not
that
at
was
all.
not a comedy. It was not a comedy.
And when you see him step into the role of the cop, it was kind of like, whoa. You're on the opposite side of the bars now, so. But I think he played longer as a cop than he did a prisoner. So, but that's what I remember him from. So I guess this one, if you take Oz and mesh it with his SVU character, it's Happy.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a selling point, but okay.
I liked both of them.
Okay. On that note, unless Les had something else to add, I don't want to cut him off.
Now I'm just wondering if somebody had gas just then. It was a weird beeping sound.
Gas?
Yeah, I'm sitting here and all of a sudden it goes. So I figured somebody had gas. I don't know.
Oh shit! The aliens have showed up
So
at
that
Les's
was
house.
gas. They need to go get
Yeah.
checked out.
Just don't go into the light, Les. Don't go into the light.
They don't have cookies.
But that's the refrigerator.
All they've got is anal probes. You don't want to go there.
Well, I can see so much getting cut out of this episode.
Oh, hell no. I ain't cutting any of this
Yeah,
out.
I was about to say, you really think that's going to get cut out? Yeah, okay.
I've only been here for a few months, and I know that one's staying in.
Wow.
Oh, but you know we love you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're joking with you.
Like
Not
you need a third hole in the head.
Dude, if you've only got... Never mind.
What was that, Mike?
Never mind.
Okay.
Oh, he gets bailed out. Yeah, thanks.
We don't need to be counting the holes in Les's head at this point.
See, I didn't say that.
No, but you just laughed at it, young lady.
I tried really hard.
I
not
always
to.
laugh when I'm nervous.
Woo! Welcome to 2018, folks.
I thought I
Well,
had...
moving along,
Don't we have a commercial or something? Jeez.
please. Maybe a 30-minute long commercial.
Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topic,
We have a topic? I thought the topic was make fun of me.
well, we can scrap our regularly scheduled topic to do that. If that's
I'd
what you'd
rather
like.
not.
So why'd you bring it up?
No way. This topic is too timely. We have to do it this week. Maybe next week, Les.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, next week will be okay.
We're safe.
All right.
I'm going to be sick next week. I can feel it coming on now.
Seems to be a lot. There seems to be a lot. It seems to be a lot of that going around. Oh, I can tell next week I'm going to be sick, so I'm not going to be here. Yeah. Inside joke, folks. Inside joke. Never mind. Before we get into this week's topic, which is not about Les, I want to take a couple moments to thank the fine folks at Things for Another World for sponsoring the fellowship. And right now, they're just running their evergreen deals, which are still pretty impressive. 40% off on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And 50% off Nick and Dent comics, amongst other deals. So if you want to know more information, go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on our sponsors tab. There you'll see some more information, and there may be some new deals popping up since our recording. And of course, they'll be up there. There will be links there that you can click on. They'll take you to their website and let you know that we sent you their way, and take advantage of these deals. And thank you, fine folks from Things from Another World. Alrighty. January 1st marked the 200th anniversary of a release of a special book. And this book, you may have heard of it. I love the subtitle. The Modern Prometheus is a really cool. Not that Frankenstein's not a cool title, but the Modern Prometheus is pretty cool too. Yes, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein celebrates its 200th anniversary this year. And the history of this book, how old was she when she wrote this? She was like, what, 17?
Yeah, I believe. It was 17.
Or when she was 18. Never mind.
She was right in that age range.
Right.
When the book was published, she was like 19 when it was published.
Right.
And they had done if it's like a year and a half, 2 years before that the legendary dinner party or whatever it was took place.
This is pretty amazing. And this was her first. She never wrote a book before, if I'm not mistaken, right? You know more about this than I do, Mikey.
As far as I know, yeah, this is her first publication, and it was actually published anonymously at first. That's the other interesting tidbit is that, and because of that, when her name finally did get attached to it on, I want to say the third edition, several years later, nobody believed it because everybody was absolutely certain that her husband had written it instead, Percy Shelley.
Right.
Who was a relatively infamous poet of the time.
For the time period, I hate to throw the female card around, but women really weren't, they couldn't claim their work. I think there was an artist, too, that it was the same way. She let her husband take the credit, and then nobody believed her when she finally came forward and said that she had been doing it. So I could see how she'd publish it anonymously, one, to be taken seriously, you know?
Yeah, I mean, just a 19-year-old.
Yeah,
I mean,
in 1818.
Right. Yeah. Being a 19-year-old young woman was not the most prestigious thing in the world at the time.
Right. We were to be seen and not heard, and the men got all the accomplishments, you know. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it was.
So, to honor its 200th anniversary, I figured we would take some time out to kind of discuss the story and its impact. I mean, oh my God, you can't look around without seeing something Frankenstein related these days. Several movies, TV shows, comics based off the premise or the characters.
Yeah.
But I figured we should spend some time and honor the book. So, who would like to go first?
Well, I remember reading this one in school when they actually allowed us to read real literature, and it's been some years since I've been in school. But one thing I thought was interesting from hers compared to the other iterations of Frankenstein that had came out, and that my son pointed out to me, is in this book, he was never called Frankenstein. He was always the monster. So it seems like every iteration after this one has called the monster Frankenstein. Which you can see, you know, you name a star if you find it, that kind of thing. I thought that was interesting. And her version made me more sympathetic to the monster. You know, all he wanted to be is part of society, and you know, the other versions kind of play him to be dopey, you know, fire kind of thing. So I like this version better than the others that have spit out from here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, one of the iterations that put the Frankenstein experience on the map was that 1931 film. And yeah, that was one of the first ones that basically dumbed the creature down.
Yeah. Because in her book, wasn't he almost a scientist?
He proved to be, I mean, he basically taught himself to speak and to read.
Yeah.
In a matter of months. So, yes, he was clearly very intelligent.
But because of his outward appearance, nobody would ever allow him to be in society with everyone.
Right. He was frightening and hideous in appearance. And so that a lot of playing on a lot of the biases in that way.
Yeah.
People are scared of
Which,
things
of course,
that are large and ugly.
Today's times, they'd put him on a parade, they'd start a GoFundMe, and
well, today's times he'd be recognized for the scientific marvel that he is.
He wouldn't be so ostracized.
Right, it wouldn't be as big a deal because appearances are less. People are freaked out less by appearances now.
Yeah.
Maybe we've evolved. Maybe there are other reasons. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that, I mean, as popular as it was at the time, it took a kind of a big departure from the original story. And in all fairness, one, I didn't do a ton of research, but what little research I did, that was actually the fourth film based on the Frankenstein story. I mean, this is in 1931. This is in film. This is like the first one was in 1910. This one was the fourth. It was probably more based on one of the many plays based on Frankenstein than on Frankenstein itself.
Yeah.
So it's even at that point, it's several layers removed from the actual novel. So that it's as different as it is not that surprising. I do wish there had been a movie that. The problem is that it would be a really hard thing to film. It wouldn't really the novel itself wouldn't translate to the movie very well. It's not,
because even in the movie or in the book, she kind of skips around on timelines, and I think if you try to put that into a film, you'd get lost, and people would be like, "Why is there so many flashbacks?"
Right, you'd lose track of the flashbacks real fast.
You would,
because they're going to different places, and there's not just a ton of action either. I mean,
well, because her book was toned by letters. You know, it all had different narrative, but it was all told in the form of he was writing a letter. You know, so that would be, kind of hard.
It's a weird perspective to tell the story from,
because the perspective changed. Yeah,
right, and it's also very
one point.
It's also very mostly based on Victor Frankenstein's perspective, which changes quite a bit throughout the story. His perspective changes dramatically from time to time, including the points where he loses his mind. But anyway.
Well, Victor's perspective told by Robert. Because weren't they all Robert's letters?
Well, it was Victor was writing down his story for Captain Walton.
There you go.
Captain Robert Walton. And so it's in a sense it's sort of edited in that way. Yeah. But between the two of them, and it gets weird. And then it's that whole. I mean, most people today aren't that really familiar with that Gothic style of writing that was popularized in that time. Yeah. 200 years ago. A lot of people don't read stuff that's 200 years old, and if they do, it's freaking Jane Austen, which that's another show. But it's really a kind of a unique style of writing, and there were several people doing it. It wasn't just the Shelleys doing it.
Right. And I think that's why they introduced it to us in school, was because the type of literature and writing that it was done in. And there was a lot of complaints of, isn't it like Elizabethan or something where, I understood it because I was Christian and that's the way the Bible's wrote. But, I could see why it'd be harder for other people, Yeah,
I mean, it was a bit of a revolution from, you're thinking of basically the King James version of the Bible, which would be, right?
Very
King James was immediately post Queen Elizabeth. That's where you get into that. And the deal was the Gothic thing was almost a throwback to that in that early 1800s time frame. So it's kind of a throwback 100 years or so, or about 100 years. Kind of an old kind of writing in a older style. Yeah, it gets complicated, but essentially it would be difficult to translate it to film. I mean, I hesitate to say the closest version was the 94 version, the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. That was at least a conscious effort to try to make it close to the novel. How well that worked is debatable. There are some people that like it. There are some people that really don't. But there have been so many variations on the monster.
Yeah. So what I remember is Gene Wilder. Frankenstein?
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. There you go.
And Igor.
Yep.
What hump?
Why did I have a feeling that line was coming up?
What
Well,
lines?
had to.
It's one of the best lines in the movie. In a movie full of great lines. I mean,
Right.
put the candle back. But anyway.
Their wolf. Their castle.
See, we could go on for hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are pretty much all big fans of that movie.
Yep.
Well, we could also look at the book being the first science fiction novel.
True.
It is one that has definitely gone through the ages in best health, that's for sure. So this brought along books by Verne, by Mark Twain, by Nathaniel Hawthorne. There's so many different things that were affected by this novel. And not just for the basis for novels of the future, but just the idea of, hey, we can think up things of the future and make them readable and get into that science fiction realm type of filing.
Right. What happens if we play with this particular, from a scientific standpoint, what happens if this happens? How does that
Yes.
work out? The whole what if thing, based on a relatively sound at the time scientific principle that may not have been tested out, or maybe it's kind of a crazy science idea. Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so. It's a very early
Because
example of
the
that.
time period to use electricity that way, wasn't that during the time when Tesla was frying elephants with electricity, to see how it worked? So
Wow. No.
I may be off on time periods, but
Yeah. It wasn't Tesla that fried the elephant.
Oh, okay.
It was Edison,
Edison. Okay.
using Tesla's technology
Yeah.
in an effort to prove that it was unsafe to be used around humans. And yeah, that was 80 years later.
Yeah.
But you're not far off in terms of the idea.
Yeah.
Yes, they're taking a small piece of science, which at the time would have been the idea that the human body is basically electrochemical in nature,
Yeah.
and running with it and saying, okay, well, what happens if we create this life form from this? What would that be like?
Okay. Well, I got to admit, I have not read the book. I mean, I know several things about it, but I've never had the chance to read it, and I need to. But so I can't really add too much about the novel itself.
It's definitely worth the time.
Yeah, it is a good one. And I don't know, I think in the very beginning, if Victor would have realized what he created and wasn't scared of it, we wouldn't have had a book, but I don't think the monster would have went off on the deep end like he did. But to have someone make you and then be scared of you, that would be, like I said, I sympathized a lot with the monster. He just wanted Victor to love him. The way he was looking at you're my dad, you made me. I am what I am because of you, and
Victor ghosted his ass is what happened.
Big time.
He took off.
And Victor, he lost his fiance, his best friend, and everything else because of the monster. But once again, had his actions towards the monster not have been what it was at the first, I don't think any of that would have happened. You love her, but you don't love me. You love your friend, but you won't love me. So
I think that the ending is, I thought it was spectacular. I thought it was one of the best ideas. And
Yeah.
it's mainly because it wasn't what they depict on the screen.
Yeah.
In the screen, he always gets eaten up by fire. And
Yeah.
that was not the case in the book.
Oh, quite the contrary.
Right. Well, and he got revenge, but at the same time, he killed the one thing he loved the most.
Yes.
That's where the gothic part comes in.
Right, that whole conflicting emotions thing.
I love you, but I'm going to kill you.
Right, I love you, but you hurt me, now you will die.
Yeah. And then I'll go live in solitude at the North Pole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is he Santa Claus?
Right, I'm gonna.
He's trying to make up for all the bad he did.
Oddly enough, other than the obvious St. Nicholas references, I'm not sure Santa Claus existed much before this story, if you want to get technical, but
Right.
so you might not be that far off, strangely enough.
Right. Grant Morrison could make it work.
Oh, Lord.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought the ending was so important, and I was upset that movies don't do that, that don't take it to that point, mainly because they're looking for that sequel
Yeah.
to try to save them from some of the idiocies they wrote themselves into.
Yeah, they're so busy. They're busy
to
trying
me-
to write themselves into a nice, neat little bow, and then
Yeah.
then a bow that they can then untie and start all over again with a sequel.
Well, you always have to have that hero. You can't have the good guy die, you know? Like you said, who are they going to take to the next movie? So, they can't kill the good guy, you know?
Have you seen the 31 version?
I don't think I have.
I was gonna say, who in the hell is the good guy in that movie?
Was that the one with Boris Karloff in it?
Yes, that was the movie that made his career.
No, see, I watch so much like Elvira and Vincent Price. I know I've seen it because I remember him as Frankenstein, but I can't tell you anything in the movie other than he was in it.
See, the neat thing is that he only actually played that role twice. I think it was twice or three times in that time frame. And he didn't actually play that role again until like 20 years later, 25 years later on TV.
Huh.
So he went like 20 years without wearing that makeup at all. After
Wow.
you get past a couple of sequels, it's always somebody else in the makeup.
Yeah.
True.
Yep.
Including at one point Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
And Lon Chaney Jr. did it.
Well, hasn't the same guy been Jason Voorhees?
It was different guys up until Kane Hodder took over.
Okay.
From like 6. I think it's part 6.
So
Then
he's been the majority.
he was 6 through 10, and then it was someone else for Freddy vs. Jason, which upset a lot of fans, and then obviously we had the reboot.
Yes, didn't Glenn Strange play that part too, Mike?
Yeah, Glenn Strange actually played it more times than Boris Karloff did.
Yes.
Because he came on and did like the last several appearances.
I always found it funny that in the movie Ed Wood, Bela Lugosi was complaining about Boris Karloff and him playing that monster. Yet he did play the monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after Karloff did.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta take some of that Ed Wood stuff with a grain of salt because their descendants, their kids, have been, I mean, have sworn in interviews that there was never any animosity between the two of those, between Lugosi and Karloff. Never, ever, never. They got
I
along
could
just
believe
fine.
that.
They got along just fine. I mean, they weren't like friends. They didn't hang out a lot, but anytime they worked together, which they worked together several times, they were fine. They had a mutual respect for each other.
That's cool.
But for some reason, there are a couple of instances in fictional accounts where people want to say, "Oh yeah, they hated each other," but no, those are fictional accounts.
Yeah. People always got to go for the drama, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and especially with actors, and I mean relatively famous actors.
Yeah.
Sure, why wouldn't they not assume that there's drama? Because that's what they do. Well, yes and no. It's what they do for a paycheck. It's not what they do all the time.
True.
Right.
But anyway, I feel like I'm
See, if they would have
digressing.
had Google back then, we would have known.
Boy,
Yeah.
how different would the world be now if they had Google back then?
Right, and or like Frank Sinatra and them. I mean, he was in and out of jail all the time, but a lot of people didn't know that because there was no Facebook or TMZ that blasted it 2 seconds after he was booked. So they could hide a lot more drama better back then than they can now.
How many years did they cover up Rock Hudson?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, a lot.
Yeah.
Thomas, what do you know about the? I know you haven't read the book, but what do you
Right.
know much about it?
Well, I mean, I know the basic story of Frankenstein trying to unlock the secrets of life and death, and basically trying to learn how to create life on a different level, and in the creation of the monster. And yeah, I knew there was differences. I knew the 31 was more of a mutant monster, and in the sequel he actually started talking a little bit. But I knew that he was more a human. His appearance was a lot more normal, and that he wasn't intelligent. And as y'all as already said, y'all, he had already taught himself how to talk and all that. So I mean, I knew the general gist of the story and all that, but and I knew there was a lot of differences between the book and the different adaptations, because there always is.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to do their own spin and
Their own take on it.
yeah, and try to do something to drama, make things a little bit more exciting where they don't think it's not exciting enough or that kind of thing. So
Or even just distinguish
yeah.
their version from the others.
So.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did this story not begin as a sit around the campfire type story that Wollstonecraft read or made up to her husband and Lord Byron?
Yeah, see, that legendary story about that stormy night in Italy. Yeah, basically they're trapped in a chateau in Italy. Ooh, sounds rough, doesn't it?
Mm.
During a hurricane, basically. And yeah, it's Shelley or Mary Shelley, and this happened before she married Percy Shelley. But they're there with Lord Byron and his traveling companion, John Polidori, who was a doctor, a physician. And so essentially much wine and quite possibly some stronger stuff was imbibed, and somewhere out of that the idea came that they should all see who could come up with the best story, just kind of in a short amount of time. And the two of them that actually managed to come up with publishable stories out of the deal were the ones who weren't infamous poets at the time, Mary and Polidori. Polidori's story was called The Vampire and was, by many accounts, a strangely enough dramatized version of Byron himself cast in this story about a blood-sucking fiend. And like I said, was published and was relatively successful and is an early version of the vampire myth, or an early adaptation of the vampire myth. And like I said, Mary with Frankenstein. And I mean, that went to, I mean, the vampire's barely a novella, whereas Frankenstein is a full-blown novel and has had quite a bit of cultural impact as well. Way more than Polidori's story. I mean, the vampire myth is a big deal, but Polidori's story was only a small part of it. It was a modernization of the idea. But yeah, that all took place over part of the summer of, I think it was 1816, if I remember right.
Okay.
And so I can't remember the exact date that Polidori's story came out, but yeah, a couple of years later, Frankenstein was released.
Yeah, that within itself is an interesting tale.
Mm-hmm.
To be able to sit around and just make up this gorgeous story that ended up lasting for an extremely long time. It then blossomed into film, of course, and then the resurrection of various takes on the story. I thought was phenomenal. It's got to be one of the most popular ideas ever for the kind of story it was.
You want to talk about an interesting idea. The fact, yeah, the idea that there are so many adaptations and variations on that story. A movie was made specifically about that fateful evening, that story about the storm in the castle in Italy and all of that, about what what the legend is actually happened. The movie came out in 1986. It's called Gothic, and it's about the night that Mary Shelley had the nightmares that spawned the idea, that whole legend thing.
I think I remember that one.
It's not about the movies. It's not about the book. It's about that weekend or whatever, however long it was.
Yeah.
There's some dispute as to how long a period that was, but so that's kind of an extent of how much adaptation, how loose some of the adaptations are and have been.
So what do you think about the story it's kept it such a popular concept these years later?
Because it was this monster made out of parts that, you always hear of a birth and a death. With Frankenstein, the birth was piecing him together, so he never was like a baby. But I don't know, I guess just the whole ideal that you could do that and it could live and talk and, which definitely is why the Halloween thing, definitely captured onto that. But it was just fascinating that someone could do that. We still haven't done that, like 200 years later.
We still haven't managed to make a baby without a nasty old woman being involved.
Well, we have, but not like we haven't made a teenager. I mean, not that we'd want to, but
right. Why would we want to?
I think we have to have that time to get prepared to what they become, But he gave birth to a teenager, and there it was. And I think too the love from something that was ugly, or for me, that's what captured it, was a monster that could love and wanted to be loved, and it wasn't just eating people or, some horrific thing. This was an actual person.
Yeah, and I think the idea that there have been so many variations on it. There is that nugget that gets mostly held onto, not entirely because there's all kinds of variations, but that creating life, that using science to create life, that changing the rules concept that's at the core of it all. The advancement of science past natural boundaries.
Yeah. Playing God.
Playing God. That's a pretty damn solid core for obviously a wide variety of stories. And honestly, it doesn't hurt that some of those stories have been successful and have worked well, and people have liked them. I mean, there have been a ton of, just to take movies as an example, there have been a ton of Frankenstein-based movies, even some that don't really involve Frankenstein, that don't even use the name, that have been successful. And each of those kind of in its own way builds on the others, so that fan base just keeps growing, even if the fan bases for the individual projects don't always realize that they're kind of the fans of the same thing. It just people keep consuming it is the deal.
Yeah.
And it's
all ages, all genres.
Right. You can simplify it down to something that can be rated PG, and you can dirty it up in any of a number of different ways to make it R or worse.
Yeah. Or gore. Yeah.
You go gore, you go sex, you go whatever direction you want to go. Drug use. I bet there's plenty of that in that movie.
I'm sure there was.
About that weekend or whatever. But
wasn't opium the drug of choice back then?
There was some of that going on, yeah. I think.
We got Alice in Wonderland from an opium addict.
Was he?
I believe it was opium. It was either, I don't think it was heroin because that doesn't go back that, but yeah, he was a poppy addict.
It's a mathematician too, but
yeah.
Whatever. That does not mean he wasn't. I'm not saying it.
Right. Well, that's probably what made him so good.
Out there, but yeah.
You get high and you concentrate on something and you don't give up till it's solved. So, yeah.
Well, let's try to look at the incarnations, the different forms that this took. Shortly after the original, and then this would be the 40s, you came up with the Abbott Costello films. It became a comedy. And Frankenstein had its own movie. Then you've got how many AC comedies that had Frankenstein in it. Maybe not as the main, but the character, the monster, appeared. You go forward, you've got, of course, you have the Hammer films, which were another version of the monster of the story, and how they worked that. And I say worked because there was a double feature of horror of Frankenstein or the horror of Dracula and what was the Frankenstein? That they had those two as a double feature. Yes, thank you.
Curse of Frankenstein, yeah.
Yeah. You had Frankenstein fighting in Japan.
Yeah.
At
Godzilla.
one time. Yes.
I don't think they called it Godzilla. It was like the dragon or something, wasn't it?
No, I think they actually used Godzilla in the Godzilla versus Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. And then they've also done versus Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
and the Wolf Man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they were doing that all through the 30s and 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So it has spawned so much.
And that kind
And
of
even in new novels. What
Yeah.
was Frankenstein Unbound? Was a strong novel in the, I want to say, 70s.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was it Dean Koontz did something like a decade ago or so
True.
as well. Dean Koontz's Frankenstein.
Right.
And so,
Dean Koontz did?
yeah,
Huh. That's kind of weird.
sure did.
We are a font of information.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking through a list of Frankenstein movies, and there's one here called Frankenhooker. So it's spawned a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of movies.
I'm sorry, but that's one of my favorite movies.
Is it?
This does not surprise me at all.
I think it is a very funny movie.
It's right up your alley in terms of that B-movie thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
it does look like a B movie.
Oh, it is.
Well, and one of the adaptations, or well, I mean, obviously you've got Young Frankenstein, which we probably could do, and if we could probably do an entire show on that.
Yeah.
It's for me, the fun part about that is how much closer to. I mean, it doesn't tell the story of the novel, but it comes a whole lot closer than and pretty much anything that had been done before. In that the monster becomes smart at the end.
Yes.
That to me has always been one of the reasons I've loved that movie. But another one that is loosely based, very loosely based, is the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorites. Yeah, because Rocky was,
Created.
yeah, he was in almost the same fashion.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't look as bad.
Yeah, they did take some liberties there, but
Yeah,
yes.
they did.
Nobody's really complaining about that either, but you know.
Oh, no. But, branched off from Frankenstein, also, Tim Burton's first piece of work was Frankenweenie. And
Yes.
Disney shot him down. So he was like, okay, so he left there and went and did his own thing. And I can't remember what year that movie came out, but he had a lot of great work in between there and then put out Frankenweenie. But that was his original, what he wanted to do. Which I bet Disney's still kicking themselves in the butt for that one, but
I hope they are, because I don't know if you've seen it, but it too is a good movie.
Which one? Frankenweenie?
Frankenweenie.
Yep. That one was pretty. Yeah, I have all of Burton's work.
Okay.
He's one that, I don't know. I always love his work. Anything he does, it's like I just want to lick his brain. It's like he reads my mind,
Well, hold that thought for next October.
See, and the
We'll
weird
talk
part.
about brains we want to lick.
There you go.
See, and the weird part is that Tim Burton is the kind of guy that you just want to envision that he would be down with the idea of you licking his brain.
I think he would.
You know?
And hey, he recently split with Helena, so.
So, Thomas, how are you doing, huh?
Trying to stay out of this right now.
I'm trying to divert it myself.
And you're doing a good job. Keep on going.
Oh, wait.
So I'll ask a semi-legitimate question. Somebody, please enlighten me on what kind of comics adaptations we've seen
Wow.
of the Frankenstein story.
I'll tell you where I first read Frankenstein.
Okay.
And that was Classics Illustrated. They did a version, and I was sucked in immediately.
I would actually like to see that. I have not read that.
And of course, we have Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty solid to the core of the story.
Oh yeah, my understanding is that he was a huge fan of the book.
I've read Frankenstein in those monster magazines, but I don't think I've actually read just a Frankenstein comic.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah. I need to find some.
Then wasn't there like a 40s Frankenstein, but it was done a little bit more lighthearted, kind of comedic? Because I've seen images. I know. Can't remember the company. It's a British company that's been doing a lot of the reprint collections in hardcovers, and Les knows what I'm talking about, but he may not remember the name. But the same company did the Captain Video collection. But wasn't there like it was? God,
That could very well be. It doesn't come to mind immediately, but that's possible. Yeah.
But
Isn't Alan Moore doing a series of monster books? Like Cinema Purgatory or something like that?
Cinema Purgatory? Yeah.
Have any of them touched on Frankenstein?
No.
No.
They're dealing with new stories.
Okay.
You have comics like the EC comics would do the mad scientist creates a body and everybody goes, ooh, scare, run away. Although this is strictly from EC, which to me has always been a little amusing anyway. To me, they've never scared me. They've never made me really think about what is spooky. So.
Well, and their Comics Code time frame, right? So they kind of can't go too far. I mean, they're trying to do what was done pre-Comics Code, except for the Comics Code standard. Am I crazy on this?
If I recall, they were thumbing their nose at the Comics Code the whole time they were doing their line of comics. So to me, they weren't really owning up to the Comics Code. As far as they were concerned, it was hogwash.
Well, did a lot of them get around the code by saying they weren't making them for children, they were adult books?
I think they tried.
Yeah. Because isn't that, I think on the Stan Lee bio thing that they put out, I think he said that was the way that he finally broke away from that. It was because he told him he wasn't making comics for kids. That he, that would be fine and good to have the little code on there if they were kids' books, but more adults were reading them at the time than kids were. So he called it adult comics, not pornographic comics, but adult comics.
His titles, yes.
Yep. So he was able to break from the comic code.
Yeah. And EC stands for what, Les?
EC?
Yeah. What did it stand for?
I want to say Entertainment Comics.
No, educational.
Educational.
I was thinking extra crappy.
Wow.
Oh.
That's vicious.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, it was PS Art Books that are doing the collections, and what I was thinking about was Frankenstein by Dick Briefer. These were from the 40s, and it was obviously a more of a humorous take. Mid 40s, actually, 1945. So you're,
One a little more recent, Xenoscope did Van Helsing versus Frankenstein.
Yes.
You want a little less recent? Frankenstein made an appearance in Criminal Macabre.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I see that Dean Koontz thing, it was a comic book that he wrote?
I believe he wrote a novel like 10 or 15 years ago, and they did I don't know if it was an adaptation of that or kind of a sequel to that, not like a year or two ago. Was it?
I think there was a
Was it
series of
Dynamite?
novels.
Yeah, it was Dynamite. And the artwork looks pretty good.
Yeah, it was actually a fairly interesting story.
I'll have to grab that one.
It's kind of based on that idea.
It may even be a collected that you can purchase. I don't know.
Almost certainly.
All right. Good talk. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up and take a break and come back with picks?
I'll say if you haven't read it, it is worth a shot.
Mm-hmm.
It may not necessarily be the book for you, whoever you are listening to this, but it is definitely an interesting read.
It's a classic,
and
for sure.
It's kind of always been one of my favorites, so I'm not biased at all, right?
I agree with you, though. I think that's something to go find at the used books or just get one at Barnes & Noble or something.
Yeah.
You'll occasionally you go online. I mean, you go online, you'll find dozens of these, but you'll find like the 50 greatest books of all time, or the 100 books you have to read before you die, or something like that. And it's almost always on those lists.
Yeah.
Well, he agreed with you, or you're not biased, so hey.
There you go.
Alrighty. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Liz.
All right. My first pick is a special edition. Harley Quinn, Be Careful What You Wish For, #1. Looks like she gets a hold of a genie, and I can only imagine what Harley would wish for if she had a genie. So this one should be really good. It's a standalone comic. It looks like the last 18 pages is a brand new story and artwork by Amanda Connors. So I would pick it up just for that. But yeah, let's see what kind of trouble she gets into with a genie.
That can't end well.
Yeah. Pretty much.
That was a title that was available only at the convention.
Yep.
And this will be the first time in the stores that you'll be able to purchase it.
Yep, it says it was a Loot Crate exclusive.
Woohoo!
Fancy.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, Mikey.
I'm next. All right. I have an IDW book, and this is the trade paperback for Satellite Falling. This is a series that ran 4 or 5 issues. I'm having a hard time remembering which. About a year ago or so. And it was the story of a woman named Lily, who was the only human on an alien world. She had left Earth for a laundry list of reasons and moved to a world called Satellite, and drove a cab during the day and was a bounty hunter at night, or at least until her life started to get really weird really fast. It was a very fast-paced, exciting story. Lots of cool alien-type stuff, some great artwork. Definitely worth taking a look at.
Very cool.
I'm in on that one, too.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. I am next. And for my first choice, I'm going with Valiant. And this is Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe #1. I believe this is a tie-in to the upcoming web series that the trailer came out so many months ago, but looked so freaking awesome. And of course, Colin King, hey, Ninjak, is going to have to go up against the rest of the heroes. And I generally don't like that kind of stuff, but hey, this is Valiant, so it's going to be kind of cool. Not really familiar with the creators. Elliot Ray Hall is writing. Joe Bennett's doing the art. But I'm definitely in on this.
Didn't you say you're not familiar? Didn't Elliot Rahal do the Doorman from Heavy Metal Comics?
Oh yeah,
last
that's
year?
right.
He also did. I think it was a Bloodshot one shot not long ago.
Okay.
So.
That I don't remember, but I do remember Doorman. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Alrighty. Les.
My first choice is from Aftershock. And just a couple of weeks ago, I discussed this. This is a title that I'm highly recommending. It's called Monstro Mechanica. Number 2 comes out. You've got Paul Allor as the writer and Chris Evenhouse as the artist. Like I said, I think everybody should go find this comic because it has some fantastic artwork and it has such a great plot with Leonardo da Vinci being the center of attention. It's spectacular. Go get it.
Does sound pretty good.
Yep.
Now, Mechanica, is that like Lady Mechanica? Or am I off my series?
Well, this is a wooden robot that he has created.
Ah.
And it seems that the robot may be getting intelligence. So it's pretty cool.
That sounds good.
A 16th century AI story. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
A steampunk robot.
If it's going to happen to anybody, it'll be Da Vinci.
Right. All right, my second pick. It's not a repeat from last week, but it is another short story coming out of Zenescope, out of the Grimm universe. It's Robin Hood, The Curse, Part 1 of 6. Looks like once again we'll be getting 5 covers out of this. But it looks like from her last story where she went to prison, she's back home now, and she's got to get used to normal life until a friend calls. It's always our downfall, a friend calls us. And she's got to help her with this new evil that's come into town. So, should be interesting. 6, and kind of weird, but Tedesco's not writing this one. So, this one's wrote by Chuck Dixon.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still should be pretty good, though.
Oh, yeah. He did some nice work with Van Helsing versus
Van Helsing.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, I love the Grimm universe. It's just always kind of neat, you know, how they twist the characters than what we really know them by, you know.
Yep.
So.
And he's established himself as a writer.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
From his, oh God, what has he not done? I know he's Nightwing, Birds of Prey, Batman, G.I. Joe. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
So it kind of surprised me when the Van Helsing miniseries was announced and he was announced as the writer. I was pretty surprised, but it was a good ride, and I expect the same thing out of this.
Yep. Usually Zenescope gives us a good story, or at least from the Grimm universe they do. So I haven't read a miniseries yet that I don't like out of there.
Well, that's a plus then.
Mm-hmm. And it's usually girly, so. Or the heroes are girls in most of these, so maybe that's why it appeals to.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Okie dokie. My second pick is an Image book. It is also a trade paperback. This is Volume 6 of Postal. Yes, I'm talking about Postal again. I'm I'm going to have limited opportunities to keep talking about Postal because this trade collects Postal 21 through 24. Postal 25 will be the official end of the series, and there will be some one-shots that come along the way after that. So I guess I'll get a couple more chances to talk about it. But this particular story from this trade pits Eden against the FBI, or at least part of it, and it also pits Eden against one of its former creators. So some things are coming to a head here, and this is a case where these guys knew they were wrapping the series up soon, and so they're kind of doing it on their own terms, and it's a really, really cool story.
Awesome.
That is, yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty, for my next pick, I'm going with Marvel Comics, and this is X-Men Gold Annual number 1. And the reason why I picked this one is it's a reunion of the Excalibur team, original Excalibur team. Although, if you look at the synopsis, it's not quite correct. Because it says the 20th anniversary, which it's not. It's the 30th.
Uh-oh.
But it's the original team. Yeah. A friend of ours, Chris Simons, has always complained about the Marvel editors, about them missing a lot of stuff, and here's another example of that.
Or at least sucking at math.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's the original team. It's Kitty and Nightcrawler and Rachel, the Rachel Phoenix, although she doesn't have the Phoenix ability. And then Megan and Captain Britain, and of course they're expecting a baby. So we're gonna have a baby Braddock running around.
Woohoo.
So it'd be nice to see these guys together again, even if it's just for one issue.
Yep.
I know Mike and I love the original run with Claremont and Alan Davis and all that. It was a hoot.
Indeedy.
Alrighty.
The Marvel title?
This was a long time ago, but yeah.
Okay.
I cut my teeth on Marvel back in the day.
Yeah, he was doing X-Men during the late 80s, early 90s.
So I was going to say, they only said 20 because they want to forget about the last 10 years.
Maybe.
Ouch.
Who knows? Well, certainly the last 5 or so.
Yep.
Alrighty, Les.
I am going to follow up with Rose number 7 by Image Comics. Meredith Finch and Ed Guara are the creators of this. And at number 7, I'm going to probably say go back and grab the trade of the first group and then fill in so you don't get too lost. But as Thomas and I have seen, the artwork in this is 4-star, and the storytelling by Meredith Finch is really to be seen, really to be read. This is the wife of the great artist David Finch, and she really pulls this stuff off. It's got a great story with the fantasy world, and I believe that it is something that should be in everybody's pull box because it is so much fun.
Yep, it's been pretty cool so far. It's been a nice read.
Some of these covers look amazing on that one.
The interiors are as spectacular as the interiors. No one has done better lighting for some comics than the group for this one.
Cool.
I'll have to start pulling that one.
Alrighty, any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
I've got one.
We got an honorable mention. That's right. Yeah. Go ahead, Les.
I've got the honorable mention of the Farscape Omnibus, Volume 1. It's a soft cover coming out. And this is based on the television series by Rockne S. O'Bannon. You have all the characters that you enjoyed in the TV series coming forth in this great run. This is going to be over 600 pages of literature right here. And it includes the what they call the formative adventures of Dargo, one of the most popular characters on the television show. I do have a lot of this. I don't have it all by the sound of it, because I sure don't remember 600 pages worth. So I've got a feeling I'm going to try to track this one and get that into my little greedy hands.
You may need help carrying it to the car. Holy cow, 600 pages.
Yeah, it's a two-man job, that's for damn sure.
Very cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool show, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not on TV anymore. No one's showing it. Is it on any of the streaming services?
I haven't looked in a while. It used to be on Netflix. I haven't checked to see if it's still there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind trying to pull that up and watch that again. It's been a little too long.
And that's one you need to start with episode 1.
Yep.
Alrighty. I'll go back. Any special mentions or shout-outs this week?
Not me.
Nope. I'm good.
Nothing here.
Alrighty. We'll get to our regular shout-outs then. First off, thank Manny the Martyr for the awesome music that we use for our podcast. You guys should really go check out their music. They've got a couple EPs. We'll have a link in the show notes. And if you go to our website, once again, that's www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on the podcast tab, you'll see their logo. Just click on that. That'll take you there. Definitely check them out. Second of all, I want to thank the fine folks of the Potter family on Twitter for spreading the word of the Fellowship, retweeting and liking our links. Thank you guys so very, very much. You should take a couple moments, at least a couple moments, head over there to Twitter, do a search. You'll find any kind of podcast that you can think of. Even if you're just don't really have a specific subject matter in mind, just you'll find some really good shows. So definitely check them out, and thank you guys for your support. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We appreciate your support in the past. We do value your feedback. If you have a comment, suggestion, questions, anything else, we're always open and willing to hear what you got. And there's several ways you can contact us. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net would be the easiest way, but you can also go to our website and click on the About Us tab, and there's a form there that you can fill out, and we'll get that as well. You can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. That's all one word. Or on Twitter, at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there if you'd like. We have our own personal Twitter accounts that you can follow if you'd like. Mike is at Mikey Geek. Liz is at Newman_L, and that's NEUMANN_L. And I'm at TomTCGeek. So feel free to follow us there. And wherever you download or listen to our episodes, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and hopefully soon on Spotify. We're still waiting for a response, right, Mikey?
We are still waiting.
If you could take a few seconds and rate our shows, if you have a little bit extra time, a couple minutes or so, a review would be awesome. Did I miss anything?
I think you nailed it.
Yep.
Woo-hoo! All right. Any final thoughts before we say goodnight?
Just the usual. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And if you've got questions, you want us to answer, I'm sure we'll handle that in an upcoming episode. So please start getting them in.
Yeah, definitely. We put a call out at one point. I need to do that again. Thank you for reminding me there, Les. So we're always open for whatever questions y'all might want us to answer on a future episode. So please send them that way.
Yep.
And we'll definitely give you a shout out.
We will.
Yep.
And on that note, thank you for listening, and thank you for your support, and I hope 2018's a great year for all of us. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time.
Talking about Frankenstein tonight, right? Okay, good. Oh, I am seriously tempted to cut that out and put it at the very end of the show.
Go ahead, man.
I double dog dare you.
I just have to remember.